Now, welcome to chapter one of the business model canvas. Here, we'll clearly have a definition of the business model canvas and look at the different building blocks related to the business model canvas. So, here's the core definition of the business model. A business model describes the rationale of how an organization creates, delivers, and captures value. It is a blueprint for strategy implemented through structures, processes, and systems. Now, why a shared language matters. Uh, Now, this business model, or rather business model canvas, it's simply creating a shared language through which we can be able to efficiently communicate and capture all the needed aspects when building or running a business. Now, any productive discussion on a business model innovation requires a shared understanding. Now, the concept must be simple, relevant, intuitive, and without oversimplifying how enterprises actually function. The business model canvas has been adopted by different organizations, governments, and non-governmental organizations as one of the most reliable tools of communicating between team members and different stakeholders. Now, the nine building blocks can be categorized into four main parts. Now, the first part is customers. When it comes to customers, we look at them in these different ways. The first is customer segments. Next, customer channels. These are the channels to which you reach these particular customers. And finally, customer relations. So customer relations, these are the relationships which you build over time between you and your customers, or how you generally relate to your customers. Next, we have offer. Now, offer is simply defined as the value proposition in the business model canvas. This is what you're offering to your customers. After that, we have key infrastructure, or rather infrastructure. Here, you have key activities, key resources, and key partnerships. Now, these are the different resources which you need while running your business. And then finally, we have financial. Now, under financial, we look at revenue streams and cost structures of a business. Now, next, we'll be able to look at each and every one of these building blocks to better have, or rather to have a better understanding of them. So, building block number one, customer segments. Now, customers are the heart of any business model. A company must consciously decide which segments to serve and which ones to ignore. Then design the model around a deep understanding of the customer needs. Now, this clear definition first establishes that for any business to be successful, you need to have the right customers through which you're serving. Now, for these customers, they come in different forms and sizes, but what you need to know is that you also need to make a conscious decision on which customers to ignore and which ones to focus on. Now, when it comes to customers, there are different segments through which you can be able to look at them. The first segment is mass market. Now, for mass market, this is one large group which broadly has similar needs, and it's common in consumer electronics. So you find one product fits a multiple array of individuals or organizations. So that's generally a mass market. Next, we have a niche market. Now, this is a specific specialized segment common in supplier to buyer relationships. For example, in car auto parts, we find that they have a niche segment where if it's a specific engine, you have the manufacturer being a different supplier providing for a specific brand. Next, we have segmented customer segments. Here, these are slightly different needs across groups. For example, you might find a bank has a segmented customer base where they distinguish clients based on their wealth or based on their size of their portfolio or the size of their savings, for example, when dealing with the financial bit. Next, we have diversified. Now, for diversified, these are two unrelated segments with very different needs. You might find your business is serving two different segments who have totally different needs. Now, for example, you might find Amazon, which has the e-commerce platform, but also strong on the Amazon web services. You might also think of alternative businesses within your area serving two distinctly different customer bases. And finally, we might have also a multi-sided platforms. Now, these are two or more interdependent segments. A good example of this is the credit card companies, where they serve both the merchants, who are the sellers, and the customers, who are the buyers. So we find the card company serves both of these, enabling the card holders easily pay for things online, and also enabling merchants receive these particular payments. So when they're marketing or approaching a merchant, they come with a different value proposition, and when approaching a customer, they also come with a different value proposition to them. Let's say efficiency in how we can easily buy things online, and then for merchants, you sell them maybe the ease of collecting payments. The next building block is value propositions. Now, the value proposition is the reason customers choose one company over another. It solves a problem or satisfies a need through a bundle of products and or services tailored to a specific customer segment. Values may be quantitative, such as price, amount, or they may be qualitative. Qualitative, this includes things such as quality, design, and experience. Now, for value creation, there are different elements. Now, you might think of it in either one of these particular elements for your value creation. The first one is newness and performance. Now, this is satisfying entirely new needs or improving product or service performance. Now, for newness, you might find this is quite common. For example, for the phone manufacturers, you find every year they are giving out or rather launching a new product. So this newness becomes the value proposition, prompting people to go in and purchase the new product. Next, value creation is price and cost reduction. Here, similar value at a lower cost, or helping customers reduce their own cost. Now, this can be common in service providers within the industry. You might find in the hotel industry, there are cheaper service providers for the same thing. Let's say you're traveling for a conference, you need accommodation. A hotel might provide a value proposition of being cheaper or more cost effective than another one. So that's their value proposition. Next, there's customization and design. Now here, this is tailoring to individual needs via mass customization. Now, design as a differentiator in fashion and consumer electronics is quite common, where you find that the value proposition is the design itself. So you might find this a new type of clothing or fashion. So for them, or rather for them prompting the customers, giving them the reason to buy is this customization or design. And then now we have accessibility and convenience. Now this is reaching previously underserved customers or making things easier to use. Now with that, we can proceed to the next block, which is channels. Now for channels, this describes how a company communicates with and reaches its customer segments to deliver a value proposition. They are the customer touching points that shape the overall experience. Now, these touching points can be categorized into about 5 key touching points. The first one is awareness. Now, at this point, you mainly attract prospects via channels. Next, is evaluation. Now, for evaluation, you provide information and comparisons where your target customers can be able to gather the needed information or compare your value proposition to other competitors. After evaluation, you go to the next touching point, which is purchase. Now, this is mainly done through facilitation of seamless transactions, where you're able to receive the payments and deliver either the service or the goods to the customers, which brings us to the next touch point, which is delivery. Now, for delivery, now this is the fulfillment and confirmation of orders. And finally, we have after sales, which is support, retention, and feedback. Companies can use different channels. First, they can use their own direct channels, such as Salesforce. This is their sales team, or their own website. Or they can also use owned indirect channels, such as retail stores. They can also rely on partner channels. This includes channels such as wholesalers, partner websites, and additional partner networks which support the distribution of your goods or services. Now, when it comes to the channels, one needs to get the right mix, balance for reach, cost, and customer experience. So you need to balance in between this to get an ideal mix for your channels. Let's proceed now to the fourth block, which is customer relationships. Now, for customer relationships, different businesses form different levels or types of customer relationships between them and their customers. And these can be categorized in different forms or styles, where we'll be able to look at four main customer relationships. The first one is personal assistance. Now, for personal assistance, here there's human interaction via call centers, email, or on-site representatives during and after the sales process. We also have dedicated personal assistants. Now, for a dedicated personal assistant, this is a dedicated representative for a single client, and it's the deepest relationship type where you have, which is common in private banking and key account management. We also have self-service and automated customer relationships. Now, here we have no direct contact. Customers help themselves. Automated services add personalized profiles and recommendations to simulate personal relationships. We also have communities and co-creation. Now, in this particular customer relationship, you find user communities facilitate peer knowledge exchange, and co-creation invites customers to create value. Now, where customers themselves can be able to provide, let's say, reviews or content, let's say, in case or in the event of things such as video platforms or social media platforms. Now, relationships are mainly driven by three motivations. The first one is customer acquisitions. Now, for customer acquisitions, this is whereby you try and acquire or get new customers on board. Next is customer retention, where you try and maintain the customers which you had already acquired through this relationship. You make sure they continue working with you over a long period of time. And finally, we have upselling. Now, for upselling, this is whereby you're able to provide additional goods or services which the customer might need after they had initially bought your core product, which you had targeted to them or sold to them previously. Now, we proceed to the next block, which is revenue streams. Now, revenue streams are the arteries of the business model. This is the cash generated from each customer segment. A company must ask for what value is each segment truly willing to pay. Now, for revenue, we can have two main types. The first one is transactional revenue or transaction revenue. This is a one-time customer payment. For example, for an asset sale, let's say you're selling a phone or a laptop, a device, equipment, land. So once the customer purchases this particular good or service and acquires it, the transaction is done and you earn from that, and that's all. Next, we have a different type of revenue, which is recurring revenue. This is ongoing payments for continuous access or post purchase support, such as subscriptions. So this, you can find things such as gym subscriptions, meaning if you pay to access the gym for 1 month, the next month you need to pay again to continue accessing. We also have rent, and we also have subscription applications, which can be on mobile devices or computers, now depending on the type of business. Now, revenue streams can occur in different scenarios. So for you to get a revenue stream, this basically means which activity was done, or rather in which mode are you receiving this particular revenue. And revenue is earned from the sale of a good or a service. So the first one is an asset sale. So for an asset sale, here you're selling ownership rights to a physical product. This is what I mentioned earlier in the case of a transactional revenue. So for an asset sale, once you sell either your products, you earn immediately. The other type of revenue stream is a usage fee. Here, your customers pay per use, and the more they use, the more revenue you collect. So, for example, a telecommunication company, they mainly fall here on usage fees. So, if you want to talk on your phone more, it means you need to purchase more. So, for each minute either you're talking on the phone, you end up paying more. Next, we have subscription. Now, this is continuous access to a service for a recurring fee. An alternative revenue stream is lending or leasing. Now, here you temporarily offer exclusive use of an asset at a fee. So, for example, a car hire business that falls under this particular leasing model. So, for that period when someone is using the particular good or the particular product, they're able to pay you those fees. We also have licensing. Now, for licensing, this is earning through offering permission to use protected IP in exchange for fees, and it's common in media and technology. Finally, in the revenue stream types, we have brokerage and advertising. This is the intermediation commissions, for example, which are applicable in credit cards, real estate, or fees for advertising a product or service. So this mainly applies when you come in between. Now that's for the brokerage. You earn your commission as a percentage, let's say, of the sale amount. And for advertising, you charge to advertise the goods or services. Now, still under revenue streams, we have different pricing mechanisms which you can be able to use. Now, pricing mechanisms can be chosen and to make a significant difference in revenue generated. There are two main types of pricing mechanisms. The first one is a fixed menu pricing. Now here you list the price, which is fixed for individual products, or product feature dependent priced, where you base your price on quality or quantity of features. You can also have the fixed menu pricing. B, customer segment dependent, where based on the customer segment you have a specified price for them. Or volume dependent, where this function of the quantity purchased. So for a set number of products, you have a fixed price for that. Alternatively, if you don't have the fixed menu pricing, you can have dynamic pricing. So under dynamic pricing, you can have the following scenarios. The first one is negotiation, or what is commonly referred to as bargaining. Now this is where partners, based on power, are able to bargain for different prices. Then you can have yield management. Now this is based on inventory and time. So for example, for hotels and airlines, you find during peak seasons, the price goes high, and when there's no demand, they might reduce their prices. We also have real-time market. Now, for real-time market, this is purely driven by supply and demand forces within the market. And finally, in the dynamic pricing, you might have auctions. Now, these auctions are determined by competitive bidding between different prospective buyers. Now let's proceed to the sixth building block, which is key resources. Now for key resources, these are the most important assets required to make a business model work. They enable a company to create its value proposition, reach markets, maintain relationships, and earn revenues. The key resources can fall into these four main categories. The first category is physical. Now, these are facilities, vehicles, machines, distribution networks, and other additional physical or tangible resources which will be required by your business. The next category of key resources is intellectual. Now, for intellectual, you can have things such as brands, patents, proprietary knowledge, and customer databases. The third is human. Now, so for human, this is critical in knowledge and intensive industries, where you have key specialists who act as key resources for your particular business. This includes industries such as which are reliant on scientists, engineers, and such key human resources who are key for that particular business and industry. And finally, we have financial resources. This include cash, credit lines, and stock option pools. With that, we've covered the six blocks. Now let's proceed to the seventh. Now for the seventh building block, for the business model canvas, here we have key activities. Now for key activities, these are the most important actions a company must take to operate its business model successfully. They create the value proposition, reaching markets, maintaining relationships, and earning revenues. We can categorize these key activities into these three distinct stages. The first is production. Here you have things such as designing, making, and delivering products in quantity or superior quality. And this is mainly dominated by manufacturing firms. You can also have key activities related to problem solving. Here you look at new solutions to individual customer problems, and this dominates consultancies, hospitals, and service organizations such as consultants. And finally, you can have platform or network, where you're managing and promoting a platform as the core resource. For example, you can have the online marketplaces, the credit card transaction platforms, and the operating systems. Now we proceed to our eighth building block, which is key partnerships. Now for key partnerships, these are cornerstone of many business models, helping companies optimize operations, reduce risk, and acquire resources they cannot or should not own themselves. The different types of key partnerships which one might have as a business. The first one is strategic alliances. Now these are between competitors to share resources or capabilities. You can also have competition. Now, for competition, these are strategic partnerships between competitors. You can also have joint ventures where you're collaborating to develop entirely new businesses. Or finally, you can have a buyer-supplier partnership, ensuring reliable supplies and optimizing resource allocation. Now, you might ask yourself why companies form partnerships. Now, these are the key motivations to do this. The first one is optimization and economies of scale. Now, for the companies, they reduce costs through outsourcing or shared infrastructure. It is illogical for a company to own all resources or perform every activity itself. The next uh, key motivation for partnerships is risk reduction, where you have partnerships reducing uncertainty in competitive environments. Now, competitors may ally in one area while competing in another, simply to ensure they've reduced the risks. Finally, they can be partnerships created due to resource acquisition. So you find extended capabilities by relying on partners for knowledge, licenses, or customer access enables more easier or efficient resource acquisition. Now, finally, we move to the last building block, which is cost structure. Now, the cost structure describes all costs incurred to operate a business model. Creating value, maintaining relationships, and generating revenues all incur costs. Mostly or most easily calculated after defining key resources, key activities, and key partnerships. Now, for the costs, they can either be cost driven or value driven. Now, for cost driven, here you're minimizing costs wherever possible through lean structures, automation, and outsourcing. Or your cost structure might be value driven, where you're less concerned with cost and focus on premium value creation and personalized service. Now, for example, the luxury hotels with lavish facilities and exclusive services. Now, for the cost structure, it has the following four main characteristics. The first one is fixed costs. Now, for fixed costs, these remain constant regardless of output volume. Now, for example, salaries, rents, manufacturing facilities, and these fixed costs are usually high in manufacturing businesses. The fixed costs might also be in form of variable costs. The cost structure might also include variable costs, which vary proportionally with volume of goods or services produced. So high in event-driven businesses like music festivals. So for variable costs, the more you produce, the higher your cost. Next, we have economies of scale. Now, here's whereby you get cost advantages as your output expands. So larger companies benefit from lower bulk purchase rates, reducing average cost per unit. We also have economies of scope. Now, these are cost advantages from a larger scope of operations. Now, the same marketing activities or channels may support multiple products in a large enterprise. So that's a key example of how economies of scope would work. Now, for the canvas, so at a glance, you find that this is the way you draw it. In the middle, you have your value proposition. To the far right, you have your customer segments. To the far left, you have your key partners. In between the value proposition and the customer segments, you have customer relationships and channels. And in between key partners and your value proposition, you have key activities and key resources. At the bottom of the table, on the right-hand side, you have your revenue streams, and on the left-hand side, you have your cost structure. Now, from concept to strategic innovation. Now here, the business model canvas gives teams a shared language to describe, challenge, and reinvent how their organizations work. Without it, systematically questioning assumptions and innovating success is difficult. So, when it comes to this particular business model canvas, once you create it, any particular idea which you have for the different segments is usually placed on the board for that particular segment. Let's say it's the customer segments. For that block, you put in your assumptions. For the value proposition, you put in your assumptions. Then based on the market feedback, you're able to adjust and either change. So the first stage is to describe. So you map your current business model across all 9 building blocks. Next, you analyze. So identify strengths, weaknesses, and assumptions in each block. After that, you innovate, where you design new strategic alternatives by modifying one or more blocks. And finally, you implement, where you translate the new model into organizational structures, processes, and systems. Now, with that said, now you're done by understanding all the 9 blocks of the business model canvas. And with that, we'll be able to proceed to the next lesson, which is business model patterns. Now below, we'll also provide a link to a sample business model canvas, which you can download and start implementing today by first filling in your current blocks, or rather your current business operations to the different blocks. And with that, you'll be able to see the different gaps, which will guide you to then create a new business model canvas and try to implement the changes which you'll have identified from that. And this is a long process and not a final process. You continue iterating until you find a business model which works best for your business.